We are here January 6th, the 2-year anniversary, and obviously we have a lot of political prisoners here in the U.S. in Joe Biden's America, and I thought it'd be a great day to sit down with my friend here, Patterson, and talk about the prison system here in the U.S. So I know that you've been closely involved with the prisons. I know it's a passion for you, so I'd like to start off by introducing you and tell my audience kind of who you are and why this is a big topic for you.
Okay, well, my name is Pat. A lot of people think my name's Patrick, but it's Patterson. And I live here in Tampa, Florida, Tampa Bay area. And I have a passion for prison. I actually work with a speaker that goes into prison and speaks and does events in prison. Also publishes a magazine for incarcerated men and women. And so 4 or 5 years ago, I really didn't think much about prison. I just knew that if people broke the law, they need to go to jail. They need to go to prison. And, if you do the crime, you you do your time.
That's right.
And that's what I thought about prison, and I still believe that. I believe if you break the law and you do something that's wrong, that you should have to pay for that, and there should be consequences. But now, after 4 years of being involved in prison work and going in, I've been in over 25 prisons in 2022, and seeing what it's like on the inside, I have a whole different perspective of what it's like being incarcerated. So I've had my mind's been changed in a lot of ways.
Wow. 25 prisons, have they all been in Florida?
They have. All the prisons I've been in have been in the state of Florida. I've been in the Florida State Prisons, the DOC, and I've been into the BOP, the prisons up in Coleman. There's large federal prisons up there. I've been in those federal prisons. The lady that I work for that goes in and speaks, she goes in. She's been in prisons in South Carolina, Mississippi, Arizona, Texas. This year, she goes in a lot of prisons.
So I think you were telling me earlier, one of the biggest issues you see with prisons in general is people go into the system and they're not being fixed, improved, rehabilitated. They're coming out worse than they went in.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about that. Like, why do you think that is, and what can we do to kind of, improve that?
Yeah, and I always tell people the one thing that I've learned, the prison system is not set up to rehabilitate people, to change people. It's basically, to me, a place to house people for however long their sentence is. It could be 5 years, it could be 10 years, it could be 20 years, 30 years. But in a lot of cases, and typically, the inmates, they don't change.
Right.
They have not been rehabilitated. They've not been set up to succeed once they get out of prison, or even know how to enter back into this free world that we live in. Now, there are programs in prison. Don't get me wrong. I mean, you can get your GED in prison, and a lot of inmates do that. Some of them, the gangbangers, the bad guys, they don't want to get their GED. They may even be encouraged or prodded to go to those classes, but that don't mean they're going to do it.
Right.
But some people do. There are programs, and there starting to be more and more programs for reentry, and that's basically, while the inmates incarcerated, they need to start preparing for when they get out.
Right.
Be ready to re-enter into this free world, because technology and everything changing as quickly as it is. Can you imagine going to prison today and then coming out 20 years from now?
Well, think about last 20 years. Before, if you went into prison in 2003, there was no iPads, there was no iPhones. Yeah. You come out and now you have this whole new digitally connected world with tablets and everything. It must be it's a huge shift. How do they adapt?
When they come out of prison, they're kind of like a brand new baby.
That's right.
They need to be helped. They need to be fed. They need to be led. They need to be given direction. And people that come out of prison are 10 times more likely to be homeless, because they don't have any structure. When you go to prison, your friends say, "Oh man, we're going to be there for you." Your family says, "We're going to be there for you." They come visit you the first year you're in prison. The second year they come less. The third year They come once. The fourth year, they may not even come at all.
Right.
And so if you have a 10-year sentence, you know, your friends, your family, they're probably not going to be there for you when you get out. Now, that's not always the case, but in many situations it is. So I just recently spent a year and a half mentoring a man that got out of prison after serving 31 years in prison. He went in as a 40-year-old and came out as a 71-year-old. I'm going to tell you, this guy had no clue what he was facing. I mean, cell phones. We got out of prison. He got out of prison, and I was showing him the cell phone and how you could FaceTime people, and he couldn't even believe it. He couldn't even imagine it. But first we got him a bicycle so he could ride around on the bicycle and get to places and go to places. And but eventually he got a driver's license. He got him a car.
Wow.
To make a long story short, he ended up finding an older woman, and they got married. I was his best man at his wedding.
Wow.
And he's doing great, but I had to help him find a job. I had to help him find a place to live.
What a turnaround, though, in his life.
Yeah,
right?
It was amazing. It was a lot of fun, but there were some stumbling blocks along the way. I mean, there were some tough times along the way, and I'm just so glad that he was like 70 years old and not 30 years old.
Right.
I'm not sure I would be able to mentor a 30-year-old getting out of prison after 15, 20 years. It would have been a whole lot tougher.
Right. Well, that's good to hear. I mean, I just can't imagine 31 years in prison and then you come out and now you have a whole new life, a wife, and you get to just, have all this freedom now.
Oh, yeah.
It's a crazy shift.
I mean, when he got out of prison, I couldn't wait to take him to a Chinese buffet. I mean, if you've ever been in prison and eaten prison food, I'm going to tell you, it's awful.
I have not been to prison, thankfully.
Yeah, well, that's good. Well, I've been many times, but not because I broke the law.
Right.
And I love going to prison and enjoy being there, but the thing I love the most is I'm able to walk out after I'm finished with
That's
what
right.
I'm doing there. But I have sat and ate chow with the inmates, and I'm going to tell you, it's terrible. The food is awful.
Really?
And it's just terrible. I took this guy to a Chinese buffet, and I walked him around and showed him. I said, look, you can eat all you want. Anything you want. He goes, I can eat anything I want. I said, you can eat anything you want, as much as you want. And I just sat there and watched him eat.
Wow.
What a pleasure just to watch him enjoy.
I'm going to say, if that's not motivation to stay out of jail,
yeah,
I don't know what is. Just think about that, guys. If you go to jail, you're going to lose all the good food that you enjoy. No more sushi.
Nope.
No more Chinese buffet.
Oh, no.
No more delicious pizza with any toppings you want.
No.
So just be aware that if you commit the crime, you're going to be eating prison slop for a very long time.
Mystery food.
Oh, God. So you mentioned to me earlier, I mean, this is a big topic right now.
Yes.
The whole idea of grooming and
Yes.
the P word. I don't want to say the P word here, but
Yeah, I know.
you know what? We're going to say it because we're talking about this in an educational way. Pedophiles.
Yes.
You mentioned that being a pedophile in jail is one of the worst things. Now, I heard that's like a story. If you're a pedophile, you go there, you get torn up. What is it true?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if you are a pedophile, it may be a death sentence for you to go to prison.
Wow.
The best thing that probably could happen to you is you get a lock and a sock.
What's that?
They have each inmate has a locker, and they have a lock that they can lock their locker up to put their personal items in. And if you're a pedophile and you go to sleep at night, you're in dorms or in a pod, while you're sleeping, the other inmates will take a lock, put it in a sock, come over and just beat you
Oh,
bad.
they put the lock in the sock and use it as
lock
kind of
and a
like it.
sock. Yeah.
Wow.
And they will beat you bad. And they do not care for pedophiles, or even if you're any kind of sexual offense. I mean, it could be having a relationship with an underage person. That's not looked on as bad as being a pedophile. I mean, that is sincerely, it's like almost a death sentence for you. And hopefully not. It could be a good beating for you, that's for sure, and multiple times. But if you have a sexual offense, you're a sexual offender, they separate themselves from the general population most of the time. It's just safer that way.
Oh yeah, of course, absolutely. That's crazy. So guys, yeah, just steer clear of that lifestyle, because if you engage in that, not only are you a bad person, but you're going to have a beating waiting for you if you're lucky.
Oh yeah.
In jail. I mean, if you're lucky.
And here's what you got to understand: there are people in jail that are going to never get out of jail. There are people that you're going to be sleeping next to that have a life sentence or multiple life sentences. They maybe have committed murder or manslaughter or whatever, but or rape, and they know they're never getting out. So what do they have to lose?
Right.
You know, if they kill you, what do they have to lose?
Yeah.
They're already going to be in there the rest of their life. They know there's no chance for them to get paroled.
Right.
So
that's the scary part.
Lose.
Yeah, when you're with people with nothing to lose, that's really scary.
Yep.
Wow.
I will tell you this: a smart thing to do when you're in prison is to honor and make friends with lifers, people that are going to be in there the rest of their life. You can learn a lot from them, and you can make them your friends. They can become your friend, and if they're your friend, they're going to help you. But if they're your enemy, or you make them your enemy, then it's not going to be good for you.
Right. So that's a strategy I guess people can use: befriend the lifers.
Oh yeah,
and
respect them, show them respect. It's like we show our elders respect here in the free world. When you're in prison, there's a lot of respect that is shown to lifers because they've been there a long time, and they're probably going to that's going to be their home forever.
Right.
And so respect is given to them, and when that happens, then they can help you in many ways navigate the system.
Right. Wow, it's good to know. I want to go over some questions we came in from the YouTube audience, and I want to thank all you guys for engaging, because I was really surprised about how many of you guys had questions about this topic. It's really, really cool to see. This is no order, so we're just going to kind of just freestyle this. Time to Watch said, start with the J6 prisoners, of which most should not be incarcerated. It's the judicial system that needs to be reformed. Do you, in your opinion, do you believe that the January 6 prisoners are political prisoners? Do you think that are being held? They didn't have speedy trials. I mean, what is your opinion on the situation?
Wow, that is a political question for sure. I heard today, and this was hearsay, I heard it on the internet, that Trump said if he became president, that he'd pardon them all. Of course, in that same discussion, it was with a gentleman that supposedly has PSTD from January 6th, and he thinks that even Trump should be prosecuted for the actions that happened on that day. I don't really know where I stand on that. I don't know if they got justice served. I mean, if they got a fair trial. I really don't know that much about it, but I do believe that that's something that should be looked at. Did they just get thrown in jail with not a fair trial, or should they have a fair trial, or should they be pardoned? It depends on to what degree they did something wrong, I guess.
Yeah, my opinion's been pretty consistent. If you attacked a police officer that day, I think there should be some kind of punishment.
Yes.
But I also think that everyone has a right to a speedy trial. And that's the part that hasn't happened for a lot of them.
Right.
Is they've been sitting in prison now for almost 2 years.
Okay, that's a good point.
Waiting for their trial, and it's like
they're detained. They're detained by the BOP, the Bureau of Prisons, the federal prison system.
And I do think they're doing it because Biden wants to send a message to the MAGA movement: step out of line, get a little too aggressive, and you're going to be sitting in jail waiting for your trial. I think that's the message they're sending. So, hopefully at some point Trump can pardon them, but, I'd like to see them get a fair trial in the meantime.
That's harsh, too. I mean, one of the harshest things that can happen is you get convicted of a crime and you are detained, you're in detention, they're being detained, they're in prison. They're in a detention center. And so they're in jail. They're in a detention center. And not knowing what your future holds is a terrible situation to find yourself in.
Yep.
I mean, most people that go to jail that are in a detention center, when they finally get to go to trial and make their case, they are relieved to find out, okay, this is how many years I have to serve, or I'm set free, or whatever.
Right.
They want that day to come. And if they get 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, then they start getting the mindset, okay, this is my penalty. This is what I got to prepare myself to do.
Right.
And they can do that.
So it's just answers they want.
Right.
They want answers. And right now, these people are in no man's land, a lot of them.
They have no idea what's going to happen to them.
Right.
That's an awful place to be.
Yeah.
And they could be moved from detention center to detention center to detention center. And that is a form of punishment.
Right. Next question comes from Rob Kaczynski. Why does the government have the right to lock bad people up in a little room for decades to unend, to protect the innocent? And why does the U.S. have the most prisoners? Let's talk about that last question.
Yeah.
Why do you think that we have the most prisoners in the U.S.?
Well, the quick answer is we need a lot of prison reform. Our prison system needs reform. It's messed up. I mean, we have people that are in prison that are probably innocent. We have people that are in prison for a first-time offense that have been given a very long sentence, which I think is a problem. First-time offenders ought to be given a little bit of slack. Then I think we have people in prison that were put in prison back for marijuana charges.
Right.
Before it was legal. Now marijuana is not a big deal anymore. People don't go to prison for marijuana. And you got guys that have been in for 20 years, 30 years, and they're there because they were involved in selling marijuana or involved in some kind of a marijuana situation. And I think they ought to be letting those guys out, to be honest with you.
I 100% agree. If somebody is in jail for a nonviolent marijuana offense, at this
Right.
point, pardon all of them.
Yeah,
Pardon all of them.
They didn't stab anybody, they didn't kill anybody, they didn't rape anybody. They just sold a little dope.
And right, and now that it's
it's
legal medically in a lot of states, right?
Right.
Let them out. I agree with you. That would literally reduce the population like this.
Let me say this. The United States has more people in prison than any other country in the world. We have over 2 million people incarcerated right now. More than 2 million people incarcerated. Our jails, our prisons are overcrowded. They cannot find enough corrections officers to work in our prisons, which makes the prisons unsafe. Over 10 million people a year rotate in and out of the prison system and jail system.
10 million.
10 million people a year rotate in and out of the prison system. And so if they go in, when they come out, they got to be different.
Right.
We need rehabilitation. We need to prepare them for re-entry back into this world. There needs to be more transitional ministries or houses or programs to help them transition back to the free world. And, we want people to go to prison because they broke the rules, but they just sit there in a cage and they don't change.
That's the thing that's so scary to me is someone commits a crime, right? They go to jail, and you would think that we as society would want to fix them, help them, improve them. They end up becoming worse because of the treatment, the solitary, the cell that they're put in. They become more of an animal.
Right.
And then when they are released at the end, they're expected not to commit crime, but you just treated them like an animal for 20, 30, 40 years. You taught them no skills.
Right.
And now, what do we expect?
Yeah.
It's the obvious outcome.
I've walked into a prison, and when you walk in and you go in through the Sally Port or through security, and you walk in, and there'll be an inmate that's been transferred from another facility, and you'll look over and they'll be sitting in a cage, just like a dog cage, like a kennel that you put your dog in.
We treat dogs better
than that.
Here's
a human, here's a man, or here's a woman sitting there in a cage.
Right.
And I go in and I'm in there for 2 or 3 hours, and I come back out and they're still sitting in that same cage. That really bothers me. They're a human. They have souls, they have spirits. They could be a father, they could be a son. They're somebody's son or somebody's daughter, and they're sitting there and they're just mistreated in many, many ways. I'm not saying that every prisoner is mistreated. Sometimes they bring it upon themselves. It depends on how they act. But I'm going to tell you, a young man goes to prison. Maybe he was addicted to drugs, and so he started selling drugs to feed his habit. He gets caught. He goes to jail. And if he gravitates toward the gangbangers and the gangs and gets involved with the gangs, when he comes out, he's going to be a worse person than he was when he went in. Now, if he gravitates toward the good guys, maybe he has a spiritual experience while he's in prison, and that opportunity is there. They have chapels, and they have groups that come in that help encourage inmates to change their life and to be a different person and to use their time while they're in prison to be prepared to come out a different person. If that happens to them, then that's wonderful. But most of the time, when they go into prison, they come out worse than they did when they went in. If they have a mental problem, a lot of people are in prison today because they have a mental problem. They have mental issues.
Right.
And if they go in there with a mental problem, they're going to come out with the worst mental problems. I mean, they go in there and they pump them full of drugs just to keep them sedated so they're not causing problems. You know, I've been in prisons and seen inmates walking into a room where we were going to have a program, and they look like zombies walking in. And I asked a friend of mine that had spent over 11 years in prison, I said, what's up with these guys? I said, they look like zombies. He said, they have mental problems and they keep them drugged up so they won't cause a problem.
Wow.
I'm like, that's crazy, man. That's just crazy.
What kind of drugs? Is it like lithium and things like that?
It's probably, I don't know.
Because there's rumors that people like, Kanye West
Yes.
have been controlled or, numbed down a little bit with things like lithium
Yep.
to kind of keep them in this like zombie state and under control.
Right.
So I'm wondering if it's similar to what they're using inside these prisons.
Yeah,
It must be.
Yeah, I don't know what kind of drugs they give them, but I know they keep them sedated so they won't go crazy and just hurt another.
So
inmate.
don't treat the problem, just cover it up with drugs.
Yeah, they're just covering it up. They're not.
That's what we
they're
do.
not helping them get better. There needs to be more mental help in prison.
Yep. So this idea comes from M.K. Johnson. They said that if someone is convicted of a crime, bill the family members, not the taxpayers. What are your thoughts on that? Having the family of criminals paying the costs, because you said that it costs a lot of money for every person in jail.
That's right. It costs about $30,000 plus a year per inmate to keep them incarcerated every year. And that, with as many people in prison as we have, that's about $80 billion a year that the taxpayer spends to house incarcerated men and women. Now, the problem with billing the family is that most of these inmates come from poverty. They come from socially economic situations that there's no way in the world their family would be able to pay for them to be incarcerated.
It's a good point.
They're probably on welfare.
It's a good point.
Their family's selling drugs to make it. They come from a lot of crime. A lot of people that go to prison, they go to prison because they're trying to get out of the hood, so they start selling drugs and they get busted and they end up in prison. There's nobody back home that can help them out financially.
Right. So there you go. Yeah, we can't really rely on the families because a lot of these people come from, impoverished homes. And
now understand, not all prisoners is that the case, because
Right.
you have a lot of white collar crime. So now I think about that a little bit differently. You have people that commit fraud and do white collar crimes that go to prison, and a lot of them go to what they call a country club prison, and it's not as secure as some of the other.
Have you been to those
prisons.
before?
Oh yeah. I've been to some of the camps, and I've been to some camps that didn't even have a fence around it.
Wow.
And but those people built people out of millions of dollars and maybe even billions. I don't know. And maybe they committed fraud and somebody lost their whole life savings. There definitely needs to be restitution for that.
Right.
And if they do get out of prison, they will be paying back that money for the rest of their life.
Well, I'm very curious to see what happens with people like Sam Bankman-Fried. He was the founder of one of the crypto exchanges that
I just heard about that.
may or may not have undergone some type of fraud, and he took a lot of people lost billions when you look at how much happened in that collapse. So we'll definitely see what happens there. But someone like him, he would end up at a white collar
Yes.
Country Club, right?
A federal prison, and it'd be probably minimum security prison. And let me tell you something, if I had to go to prison, I'd want to go to a federal prison, not a state prison. Like Florida state prisons, most of the Florida state prisons, they're old, they don't even have air conditioning. Can you imagine living here in Florida in July with no AC?
Really?
Living in a dorm with 50, 60 other men and no air conditioning. They have fans, but no AC.
One of my audience members said that they should not have air conditioning because that should be part of their punishment. So there you go.
Well, if they want to get air conditioned, they need to go to chapel. It's air conditioned. But when they go to sleep at night, no, there's not going to be any air conditioning. Now, on the other hand, if you go to a federal prison facility, let me tell you something. The feds have the money. There's a total difference between state prisons and federal prisons. Federal prisons are well built. The COs look nicer, dress nicer.
CO is correction officer, by the way.
Yeah, correction officers look sharp. The chaplains look sharp. The wardens look sharp, coat and ties, and look great. And I'm going to tell you, even the inmates, their uniforms, their jumpsuits or whatever are much, much nicer. You go to a Florida state prison, and these guys are in their prison blues, and some of them are faded out, so it's like light blue. You know, it used to be dark blue, now it's light blue. Or their shoes have holes in them, and they don't get new shoes. They get the shoes that maybe some inmate passed away, died, and so they get their shoes.
How do they determine who goes to federal versus a state? Is it based on the crime?
It's based on the crime. So if their crime is a federal crime, they go to federal prison. If their crime is a state crime, you know, if you're trafficking drugs across the state lines, you're going to go to federal prison. If you're trafficking drugs or selling drugs, let's say just right here in Tampa, you're going to end up in a Florida state prison.
Got it. Okay. Interesting.
Most people that are in prison in the state of Florida or in most other states are in there because of drugs. It's an epidemic. Fentanyl, coke. Where's that coming from, by the way?
Yeah, I mean
that's a little political.
Yeah, that is political. I mean, right now there's obviously a flood coming across the border,
killing Americans.
And as you might have seen in the news, there's definitely a lot of drama happening in Mexico right now.
Yes.
They just, I believe, arrested El Chapo's son.
Yes,
and
I saw that.
It's causing a lot of street wars in areas of Mexico. So I've seen some videos online. It's crazy what's going on over there. But again, that is an issue in the U.S. right now, is fentanyl coming across our border. And it seems like the Biden administration does not want to do anything to stop it. It is really strange.
You know, that's to me, that's a big issue. And it's politically, for me, it's a big issue. And I believe that we need to close our borders. We've got to stop that flow. But I think it's corruption on both sides of the border. But I'm going to tell you something. Number one, our young people are dying. Americans are dying because of the fentanyl epidemic. And then they're going to prison. If they don't die, at least they're going to prison. They're ending up in prison.
I have
a sad situation.
I have friends of friends who died from fentanyl. And these are people that were trying to smoke weed, and the weed was laced.
Yeah.
So that's the thing people don't realize. Fentanyl is affecting drug users that aren't even trying to use fentanyl. It's affecting drug users that want something as simple as marijuana. So we really got to get control of the situation. Another question somebody brought up, this is from Vern, is about trans people. In California, for example, if you are a trans woman, you get put into the prison with other females, where a lot of the trans women in prison in California are impregnating some of their female counterparts. And now California prisons are kind of forced to give out condoms within the women's prisons. What is your opinion? Should trans women be allowed in the female side, or should it be based on biological sex?
Absolutely not. And, you know, I just want to say thank God for our governor here in the state of Florida, Governor DeSantis. And because of Governor DeSantis, if you are a biological male, you cannot be in a women's prison. If you're a man, if you were born a man, you're going to be in a men's prison. If you are born a woman, you're going to be in a female prison, even if you look like a man.
Right.
And I'll tell you a personal experience that I had. I happened to be in a female prison, and I'm looking around, and of course, there's young ladies there, older ladies there. I'm just kind of looking over the crowd, and I was there with a speaker that I take in, a motivational speaker that encourages incarcerated men and women to change their lives. And
you were talking about you were going into jail. There was a woman.
Oh yeah, I was in a female prison, in a women's prison, and there was a nice group of ladies there. I mean, there were young women there, older women there, every demographic. And by the way, I would like to talk about that a little bit later, about the demographics of people that are in prison. But anyway, I'm standing there, and I'm standing in the back of the building, and I'm watching the crowd, and I'm there to hear a speaker that we had there in the prison. And in walks this person, and the person sat down, and I looked at him, and I'm like, what is this guy doing here? Where's this guy come from? I mean, is he a maintenance guy, or I knew it wasn't a corrections officer because he had prison blues on. He didn't have a uniform on, and I'm like, well, maybe it's they allow a maintenance person from one of the male prisons close by to come over and do maintenance, and they just want to come in and hear what's going on. And I'm looking at and he had a shadow, kind of like a beard coming, and short hair. And I mean, honestly, if you'd asked me, is that a man or a woman, I would have said, oh, that's a dude, that's a man. It's certainly not a woman. And so I walked back, and I spoke to one of the people there that works in that facility, and I said, I just want to ask you a question. I said, that person that just came in, that guy that just came in, I said, how did he get into this women's prison? How is he able to sit down in this event? And she said, that's not a man, that's a woman. I said, you're kidding me. And she goes, no, she, or whatever, she is a biological woman, and in the state of Florida, he may want to be in a men's prison.
So she was born a woman and tried to transition to a man.
Right. She was born a woman, and she wanted to be a man.
So it's a trans man.
A trans man. And I'm gonna tell you, I would have bet you $100 bill that dude is a dude, but it was a female.
Wow. Yeah, it'd be like if you were in the woman's room, you'd be like, isn't that a dude?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Wow. So it does happen. People do. They do try, I guess.
Yeah, they try, but he would. There's no way he would get to go to a men's prison. No way.
Because DeSantis says whatever your ID is when you're born.
That's right.
That's what you have to be when it comes to.
And that's the way it should be, because. Listen, you're just opening up another whole can of worms. Right.
Because I'm saying, if I ever went to jail, which God forbid I don't, because I'm a law-abiding citizen.
Right.
But if I ever went to jail, I'd want to go to jail in California, and I would just say that I'm a trans woman, and I'd be placed with all the women.
Yeah.
That's what I would. I mean, but that's what people are doing, and that's the craziest part to me.
Yeah. Well.
That's the craziest part to me.
That's a whole nother subject, isn't it? The state of California. Everybody's leaving. Everybody's moving to Texas and Arizona and Florida even.
Right. All right. So somebody here asked a question. This is, I guess, more on a personal opinion. When do you think it's more appropriate to incarcerate versus rehabilitate? Meaning, do you think that there's ever a crime where someone leave them in there forever, don't worry about rehabilitation, or are there certain crimes where this person should be rehabilitated? Like a drug deal, for example, right?
Oh, yeah.
I think that person could be rehabilitated.
Yes, first-time drug offense.
What about someone who's done like 7 murders, 8 murders, like the Idaho killer?
No.
Can he be rehabilitated at this point? Like, what's your opinion on that?
My opinion is absolutely not. Now, can he change his life? Can he be a better person? Can he have a spiritual experience? Yes, I believe that. I'm a Christian, so I believe that God is our God that I serve, and that is a God of forgiveness, and I think he could be forgiven of even that heinous sin. But do I believe that he should ever see the light of day? Absolutely not. He should spend the rest of his life incarcerated. Now, I know in Idaho they have the death penalty, so he possibly could be executed in Idaho. But I in some ways, I think staying the rest of his life in prison is more of a punishment than an execution. But yeah, I think a murder, somebody has committed a heinous crime, they need to stay incarcerated. Those are the people that need to be incarcerated. If you have hurt somebody, raped somebody, killed somebody, then you need to be in prison. But I have a problem with first-time drug offenders.
Right.
You know, those people, why can't we put them somewhere and rehabilitate them, help them get clean, and turn their life around and see if we can't make productive citizens out of them.
Right.
I'd love to see that done, even by there are private organizations, there are private group homes and rehabilitation centers that would be happy to try to help that young person change their life around. I mean, you know, to get a first-time offender, I've met first-time offenders that have been given 10, 20, 30 years.
That's insane.
That's too long.
That's too long. Yeah, that's not right. Especially if it's non-violent. That's the thing to me, is it comes down to, was it violent or not?
See, we have a thing here in the state of Florida where it's called 3 strikes and you're out.
Yep.
So you may do, you know, a small crime that you end up spending a year in jail. And maybe you get caught stealing something or shoplifting, and it's your second strike, so they give you 3 years. You go to jail for 3 years. But then the third time, when you get arrested for something, burglary or whatever you've done, and it doesn't even have to be a violent crime, but the third time, the third strike, you're going to get a long time sentence. Maybe the guy that I told you that I helped mentor, that spent 31 years in prison, he got the 3 strike sentence. He got 45 years with no chance of parole. But because of COVID and his age, he was allowed to be released. That was, wow. I mean, of course, he says, the only way I got out, it had to be God that got me out, because I don't know any other way I would have gotten out. He said, I expected to die in prison, but he got released. Wow. And he's been out now for almost 3 years, hasn't committed any crimes. He told me he found a girlfriend. I said, how old is she? And he said 80. I said, she's not a girlfriend. She's an old lady friend.
Hey, good for him, man. Everyone deserves companionship.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, he's 73 now, and she's 80, and they're the sweetest little couple.
She's a cougar.
She's a cougar.
She's a cougar. So this person, Skonda18, says prison should be farming work camps to subsidize citizens' food. The hard work outdoors, resetting healthy circadian rhythms, does wonders for the human spirit. What do you think about that?
That's a great point. You know, and some of that's happening here in the state of Florida. I know in the state of Florida, they have work crews that are allowed to go out there. They're not chain gangs like there used to be. When I was growing up as a kid, I remember we would drive up through Georgia, the state of Georgia, and you would see these convicts on the side of the road all chained together in a CO with a shotgun, and they were out there working in the ditches on the side of the road. And my dad said, that's a chain gang. He'd tell me when I was a little boy, and he'd say they're prisoners. He said when they're going to work hard all day, and then they're going to go back to prison tonight. You never want that to happen to you. I remember that. Now, we don't have those in Florida or even Georgia, I don't believe anymore, but they do allow inmates in Florida state prisons, I know, to work outside, to rake, they can be on the raking crew, they can be on the mowing crew, mow grass. They even are able to garden. They have gardens, and in a couple of the prisons, they actually are growing. They're growing food.
Oh, there you go.
And they're able to eat some of that food that they've grown, which is pretty cool.
That's nice.
And some of it they give away to the community. So that's taking place. One of the things I want to say about the Florida State prisons, a lot of the buildings are old. They need to be painted. They definitely don't have air conditioning in them. But when you walk into a Florida State prison, it is immaculate. I mean, the grass is cut. The flower beds, there's no mulch in the flower beds, but they are raked. It's like somebody went in there with a brush and just, I mean, there's no weeds in the flower beds. Everything is immaculate, the grounds, because that's one of the jobs that you can do while you're in prison. And everybody has a job. You either work in the kitchen. Nobody wants to work in the kitchen. That's the worst job.
Why is that the worst?
Because they're having to boil chicken and make the mystery food, and it's hot, and you're sweaty, and you're washing pots and pans. Would you rather do that, or would you rather?
I'd rather be outside.
Be outside planting some flowers,
getting some sun,
mowing some grass, and enjoying the sunshine.
Yeah,
I think I'd rather be on the raking crew. I asked my friend that I mentored. I said, "What was your job when you got out of, or when you were in prison?" And while he was in prison, he was in there for 31 years. He taught English.
Wow.
He filed motions for other inmates. He worked in the library, and he helped other inmates file motions. He learned how to file motions. He also wrote stories and submitted stories to different periodicals, and some of them were published. Like by one of his articles was published in a periodical called Guidepost, and I think they gave him $200 for that. They put it in his commissary.
There you go.
Yeah, he earned $200 for doing that. Now you're not supposed to do business, but there's ways to get around that kind of stuff. But anyway, I said, "What was your last job?" He said, "My last job, I was on the raking crew." And I laughed. I'm like, he was on the raking crew. So he was one of those guys that was raking those flower beds and just making them perfect. You can see the lines in the flower bed. I was kind of impressed by that, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
That's one thing I was impressed about in prison.
It's very peaceful to I guess, to do that.
Yeah.
And very, very therapeutic as well.
I'll tell you one thing that I was not impressed about in prison is if you go into prison as a visitor, and I am not just in the visitors area, but I actually go inside the chapels, inside the multipurpose rooms, inside the chow hall. I've been inside the cells. I've been inside the dorms. And when you go to wash your hands, there's no hot water, and there's this little piece of soap that's prison soap. The Bob Barker Corporation provides all those supplies for them. And it's just, you just feel nasty while you're in there. I'm constantly washing my hands because I'm shaking hands with these guys and everything, and they want to shake my hand. They're just so glad that you came in to visit them. They're just happy to see somebody from the outside.
Can somebody like me visit if I wanted to?
You could. You'd have to go through a vetting process, and you'd have to make an application, get fingerprinted, and get through the process. And I can help you do that. I'd love to take you into a prison, let you see exactly what it's like in there. And you're going to see some good things, and you're going to see some bad things.
Wow.
You're going to see some things that you're going to go, "Ooh, man, I'm thankful that I'm not here." You're going to smell prison. Not only do you see it, but you smell it. All these guys are wearing their prison blues that are washed in that detergent, and it has a smell that is unlike any smell that you would smell outside of prison. I mean, it has its own smell.
Wow.
Now, I will tell you one thing. If you want to make friends in prison, hygiene is very important. If you don't take a shower and you don't stay clean, and you have bad hygiene, that's not good. That's not a good thing for you in prison. You're going to be out. You're going to be an outcast. You're going to be ridiculed. You're going to be made fun of.
Right.
And there's another thing I told you about prison. Being a pedophile and going to prison is awful. I mean, you're facing some bad stuff. The other worst type of crime you can commit is to be a former corrections officer.
Yeah, you were mentioning
this. If you
this.
are a corrections officer and you go bad and you get caught smuggling in contraband and you get sentenced to prison, let me tell you something. Your life is on the line, because you were in there beating them up on them, you were in there abusing them, you were in there shaking them down, and then now you're a prisoner and you're in prison blues like them. They're going to shun you. They're going to spit on you. They're going to possibly put a lock on a sock and give you a good beating, and it's not going to be a good thing for you. I remember going into a prison here in our state, and I saw this guy. He's walking around. He's all by himself, and he's just kind of meek and mild looking. And we were in chow. I was sitting there with a group of inmates, and he was sitting all by himself. Nobody was sitting with him. And I'm like, "What's up with that guy right there? He didn't have any friends?" And they said he used to be a CO. And I'm like, "Oh."
So now he's all by himself.
He's all by himself.
Wow.
Now, later on that day, I engaged him in conversation just to be friendly to him because he needed a friend. I could tell he needed a friend.
Yeah.
And he told me a story. He had a kid that had a terminal illness, and corrections officers don't make a lot of money, and so he was sneaking in contraband. I mean, he pled guilty. He was sneaking in contraband, getting paid for it to make extra money to pay.
And
for
contraband is things like cigarettes.
I mean, good night, cell phones, stuff like that. That's probably the most common thing. Corrections officers can smoke. They're allowed to smoke, but inmates cannot smoke in prison.
Right. And you were saying to bring in a pack of cigarettes is about $300.
Yeah,
in
if
value?
you brought in a pack of cigarettes and they happen to fall on the ground and somebody picked them up and you went back a little bit later, there might be $300 laying there.
Wow. It's a lot.
I wouldn't
Cigarettes are
recommend
very
that.
valuable in prison.
I want to tell you this, okay, just as a disclaimer, I go into prison. When I go into prison, I go in with nothing. I leave everything that I have in my car locked up in the parking lot, and I go in with my driver's license that I leave at the gate, and they hold on to my driver's license, and I walk in to prison with nothing.
Yeah.
And
Smart.
I come out of prison with nothing.
Smart.
I will not take a note from you. You cannot write down somebody's phone number and ask me to call your uncle or your aunt or your cousin. You go in with nothing and you come out with nothing. And when they check me, when I come back out, they give me my driver's license and I leave and I get to go home to my wife and my family and
Right.
my smart TV and my air condition and my good food.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want to have any trouble. So,
Oh, no.
So there you go, guys. If you do ever end up visiting a prison, go empty-handed and leave empty-handed.
Absolutely.
Because it sounds the end of in prison is a horrible, horrible life, and one that I do not want to have to happen to any of us.
No.
Awesome. I think those are most of the questions I thought that were interesting that people.
I hope my answers were interesting.
Absolutely.
And by the way, I did a little research on Norway. I was telling you about Norway, and their recidivism rate has dropped like it's 20% now, and they only, I mean, I can't remember the number, but they only have like 15 prisons in the whole country, and you ought to Google it and see what they look like. They look like some of those little tiny houses that we were talking about.
Oh yeah.
And they even have one prison on an island that you brought up the idea of.
Yeah.
Well, why don't we just put them all on one? And they
Yeah.
put them on that island.
Yeah.
And there's not even a fence around it. None of them try to swim out or swim
Wow.
away or leave. They don't leave. You know why they don't leave? Is because they get good quality food. They get conjugal visits. And so why should they leave? It's not that bad. And they have programs to rehabilitate them and to get them prepared for reentry. But it costs them $90,000 a year in Norway to house an inmate.
Versus
per year.
30,000 plus here.
30,000 here.
Right. So you get what you pay for.
Yes.
You get what you pay for. Yeah. My idea was always to have an island where you would dump all the criminals and let them survive with the fittest.
Alcatraz was some kind of like that.
Kind of like that.
Yeah, but
Kind of like that.
but you got a guy that's a lifer and he's on Alcatraz and you just let him out and he sees San Francisco over there. He's going to take a chance. He's
Right.
going to try to swim over there.
Right.
I mean, he could either die in prison or die out there in the bay, right?
Yeah.
But where
worth
would
a
that
shot.
island be? I mean, I like that idea too, but oh man, there'd be no law and order.
Well, that's the thing though. You'd set up all these like little schools for them, restaurants, bars, everything they want, but they'd be on their own island, and it's just like they could do whatever they want.
Well, that's what Norway. You need to. That's what it sounded like to me, and I mean
But that sounds like life's too. That would be giving them too good of a life then, and these are bad people ultimately. But they would off. But they would off each other. That's what would happen.
Yeah, I think maybe you had to have a. Surely they separate, and here in Florida they separate
Right.
according to how tough you're.
To be clear, I would want that only for like the serial killers and pedophiles.
Right.
The worst of the worst, you put them on an island together, and then whatever happens, happens.
Yeah. Right.
The drug users, the dealers, the non-violent offenses, they don't belong there. Like
Yeah.
they belong to be rehabilitated and trained for reentry.
Well,
But-
there's going to be a top dog, and if you put them all on an island, somebody's going to rise to the top. He's going to be the top dog.
He'll be
He's
the
gonna
kingpin.
He's going to be the kingpin.
Right.
He's going to have his guys, and you're going to do what they say, or they're going to kill you.
Right.
You know, they're going to cut your balls off. You know, listen, there was a guy in Florida, and we're not on camera, are we?
Yeah.
Oh, we are?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
What? This whole thing's been on camera.
Yeah, I thought we stopped it, though. I thought we were finished.
No. This is round 2.
Yeah, okay.
What were you going to say?
I don't know if I want to say it because it was going to be, let's just say, you know, you got a person with a mental issue and they're in prison and they're so mentally disturbed that they castrate themselves.
Oh my God.
And they go to medical, but then guess what? They go right back into the dorm.
That's crazy to castrate yourself. What the hell?
Yeah. Well, they're mentally ill.
Right.
They need mental health care. You know, and to get medical health care in prison is not easy. You know, I mean, you got to be really sick.
Are you allowed to have a service dog in prison?
Here's a cool thing that happens here in our state. There are prisons in the state of Florida that the inmates are given dogs, and they are training them to be service dogs.
That's nice.
I actually went to a camp down in South Florida, and I walk into this camp. I'd never been there before, and I walk into this camp, which is when you go to a camp, that's minimal security, and that means that you're probably going to be getting out in the next 6 months, year, maybe 2 years. Okay, so it's not where they have violent offenders. It's not maximum security. But I'm in this camp, and we're doing an event out on the yard. So the whole population's out on the yard, and we got speakers set up and everything, and we have music, we have a band playing, and we have some speakers lined up to speak, and everybody's just roaming around out there. Some of the guys are out jogging, some of them are walking, and I'm looking around, and there's all these guys, and they have dogs, and I'm like, what is this about? I'd never been there before. I'd never seen that. They go, and so they told me, they said, in this camp, it's called a recidivized camp, which if you have not had any disciplinary action against you, no DRs, they call it, you earn the right to go to this prison, and you have a dog, and you're training that dog to be a service dog.
That's amazing.
And so once that dog is trained, then it's leaves, and it becomes a service dog for someone that needs it, and then you get another dog.
Wow.
And there's several camps like that in the state of Florida.
I really do think, just, you know, not just for prisoners, in general, I think dog ownership is really meaningful and powerful for people. I think it really improves life.
I think it helps the inmate as much as it does
That's
the person
my point.
the dog's going to see.
Criminal or not, I think having a dog really just benefits humans. And I'd love to see more prisoners allowed to have relationships with dogs. I think it'll help them a lot spiritually.
Absolutely. I want to say this, Adam. You know, there are a lot of good things that are happening in our prisons in the state of Florida. And, you know, I'm going to tell you, we have a great secretary of prisons here in the state of Florida. He's doing an excellent job. And the staff in Tallahassee are doing an excellent job under our excellent governor. And there are some changes that are taking place in Florida. Is it perfect? No. Is it all that we'd like for it to be? No. But they're working on it, and one of the things they're doing is they're turning a lot of the prisons into recidivized prisons. In other words, if you're an inmate and you're in prison and you're not causing problems and you're doing what they tell you to do and you're being a model prisoner, you can earn the right to go to a prison that has inmates like you. And so you can get out of a maximum security prison. You can get out of a prison where there's a bunch of gangbangers and where people are smoking K2 and where people are always passing around contraband. And you can get into a prison that the people don't want to get in trouble. They want it to be peaceful. They don't want to have to go to sleep at night and worry about getting a lock in the sock.
Right.
You know, and that's what I would want to do. If I was in prison, hey, I'd be trying to walk the line and do the right thing so I could get into one of those safe zones. And there are also faith-based dorms in prisons here in the state of Florida that you can, and listen, there is a list of people, inmates, wanting to get in those faith-based dorms, because you get into a faith-based dorm, you're going to be in there with people that believe in a higher power. You're going to be in there with people that or of your religious persuasion. Now, they could be Jewish, they could be Muslim, they could be Christian, they could be Catholic, they could be Baptist, they could be whatever, but they're in a faith-based dorm and they're able to practice their religion, and they're just safer there.
And you said to me that people that discover religion or have a spiritual awakening or start to believe in Jesus, those are the people that you feel end up rehabilitating the best. Is that right?
Absolutely. If you called me up and said, "Hey, Pat, I just got a 5-year sentence or a 10-year sentence. I got to go to prison. I messed up, man. I sold some coke or whatever, and I'm going to prison for 10 years." One of the first recommendations I would give you is I would say, when you get into prison, you need to go to chapel. You need to meet the chaplains, introduce yourself to them, and go to chapel. And even if you're not a believer, even if you're agnostic, even if you're atheist, even if you're a Jewish, if you're a Mexican Jew and you go into prison and they're having a Christian service, number one, it's going to be air conditioned. Number two, you're going to be in there with guys that really want to change their life. Right. They're looking for something, right. And you might be surprised. You may find something. You may, like my friend that's a YouTuber, her name is, you mind me saying, her name is Christina Randall. You need to go visit her website. Mm-hmm. It's fantastic. She went to prison for 3 years here in the state of Florida. And so she talks about all things prison. She talks about true crime stories. She's excellent, an excellent YouTuber. But Christina was in prison. She said, "I went to prison," and she said, "I was a clubber, I was a fighter, and I went to prison. I'm thinking, man, I'm just going to be here 3 years, and then I'm going to go back out, and I'm going to go back to the clubs. I'm going to go back to my group. It's just going to be life as usual." And she said that the first year and a half that she was in prison, that's the way she would thought. And then she ended up into a chapel at a prison, at an event that they have in prison. It's called Kairos, a Kairos weekend, and everybody wants to go to that because they bring cookies and brownies and all the things that you cannot get in prison. Yeah. And you get to spend 3 days, and they sing and they study the Bible, and people give their testimonies of how God has changed their life. And she said, "I didn't even sign up for it, but I ended up on that list and went to that Kairos event." And she said, the next thing I know, I'm just sitting there eating my cookies and I'm weeping, and I have this spiritual experience. And she goes, "After that weekend, I was a totally different person." Wow. And she said, "I started working and planning on, when I get out, I'm going to go to church. I'm going to find a good halfway house to go to. I'm going to get me a job." And today she's just thriving in this free world. Wow.
I love to hear that.
Yeah, my friend Christina Randall.
So that's the ideal outcome, is when people get out, they have a whole new life and become a productive citizen of society.
And here's the thing about it. When you go to the grocery store and you walk through a Publix grocery store here in the state of Florida, I promise you, there are people in that grocery store that have been in prison. Mm. When you go to a restaurant and you're eating in a restaurant, there are people in that restaurant that have been incarcerated. They're not going to come up and tell you, "Hey, by the way, I just got out of prison." Right. But they did. When you're going to live next door to people that have been in prison. Your kids are going to go to school with people's kids that their parents have been in prison. Right. So wouldn't it make us want to do whatever we could do to help change the life of those people that are incarcerated? Absolutely. If they want to know more about that, they can call me at... That's what I was going to ask you. So if somebody wants to learn more or help get involved, what do you recommend they do? What are the next steps? Well, they can call me. I have a number, and it's my work number. And I talk to... When people go to prison and go to jail, their family members call me, and I help navigate them through that situation. Wow. I help put them in touch with people that can help them know how to deal with that situation. And my number is 352-478-2098. And they can text you? That connects them directly with me. They can text message you? They can text me. They can call me. If that phone that number rings to my cell phone.
Okay, cool.
And I answer it basically Monday through Friday from 8 o'clock in the morning till 8 o'clock at night. I'll answer that phone. But when somebody's loved one goes into prison, what they do is they start Googling, and when they start Googling, looking for hope for my incarcerated loved one, or a new life for my loved one, or what do I do? My son just went to prison, or my daughter just went to prison, or my husband just went to prison. They're probably going to land on a page that they're going to find my telephone number there.
Oh, wow.
And if they call me, I will pray with them. I'll just listen to them if they want to chat, or I'll tell them what it's going to be like in prison. I will help them connect with people that have gone through the same thing that they're going through, and I love doing that. So that's part of the joy that I get out of working for this organization that I work for.
Wow.
So again, that number is 352-478-2098, and all they need to do is ask for Patterson.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate this conversation a lot. I learned a lot about the prison system. I loved hearing your views on it. Definitely wants me to stay out of prison. Some of the stories you've told me. And yeah, I love that you shared your number with the audience. If anybody ever has any questions or needs advice or anything, you can obviously talk to my friend Pat over here.
Yeah, they can also they can email me. They can email me at vlmag.org. vlmag.org. And VL stands for Victorious Living.
Awesome.
Because don't we all want to live a victorious life?
We are, and today we are living victoriously. Look where we are, guys.
We're living
Beautiful.
large, aren't we?
Tampa Bay. We got Tampa behind us.
We're
sitting
free.
in the park, Ballast Park. We got my dog here, beautiful weather. We just had a nice Mediterranean meal.
Oh yeah, it was
You
great.
know, we're living free.
Adam, you're doing a good work, man.
Thank you, Pat. I appreciate you.
I believe about 99.9% of everything you say.
Awesome.
I'm not sure Trump's going to be Speaker of the House, though.
I don't know. We'll see what happens with that.
I think that guy's going to get it. McCarthy?
Yeah, he made some progress today, apparently.
Yeah, he did.
Flipped, I think, 14 votes. So, I don't know. The Trump speaker is a pipe dream, but I'm going to hold on to it and hope that... and if we don't have him for speaker, we'll have him for president. So there you go. Thank you so much, Patterson. Appreciate your time.
Be free, my sheeple.
Be free, my sheeple. That's right. And God bless Trump.